October 2022. It's announced that there's all kinds of new Silent Hill content on the horizon. New series, new movie, new games, and a remake of the most iconic and beloved entries in the franchise, Silent Hill 2. When I saw that the Silent Hill 2 remake was going to be for the PlayStation 5, I immediately ran out to the only GameStop in my city that had PlayStation 5s in stock. I bought one for the sole purpose of just having it for when the Silent Hill 2 remake was released. Well, October 8th, 2024, 2 years later, it's out. Now, the PlayStation 5 didn't just sit there for 2 years. My wife and 2 kids got plenty of use out of it. But now is Daddy's turn. The Silent Hill 2 remake for the PS5 just dropped, released as of this recording. So, I'm gonna make this episode as a celebration. I hope the game's good. I haven't played it yet, but before I do, I just wanted to remind myself and you about one of the most iconic figures in the franchise. Pyramid Head. If you've ever played Silent Hill 2 or even glanced at the wider Silent Hill franchise, chances are that you've encountered the looming figure of Pyramid Head. With his enormous blade, his grotesque triangular helmet, and his eerie, silent demeanor, Pyramid Head is a character who haunts the player long after the screen goes black. But where did he come from? And what does he represent? In this episode, you and I are going to dive deep into the origin of Pyramid Head and his history and the symbolism, the manifestation of guilt and torment that's become an icon not just to the Silent Hill series, but of horror gaming as a whole. We'll examine how his character was born, his symbolic significance, and why Pyramid Head continues to terrify gamers decades after his first appearance. And, along the way, we'll be asking some very important questions, like why does he never talk? How does he manage to wield that massive sword? And perhaps most importantly, how does he see with that helmet on? Pyramid Head first appeared in Silent Hill 2 in 2001. If you haven't played Silent Hill 2, let's set the stage real quick. You're playing as James Sunderland, a man drawn to the foggy, desolate town of Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his dead wife, Mary. Throughout the game, James encounters a number of terrifying monsters, all of which seem to represent some aspect of his psychological torment. But no monster is more iconic or more terrifying than Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head's first appearance is subtle but chilling. James sees him from a distance in the apartment complex early in the game, simply standing behind a metal grate, staring. No sound, no movement, just watching. It's the kind of moment that sends a shiver down your spine because, like James, you know that whatever that thing is, you're going to encounter it again. And when you do, it's not going to be pretty. In a sense, Pyramid Head isn't just a monster. He's a symbol. Throughout Silent Hill 2, Pyramid Head functions as a manifestation of James's guilt and his desire for punishment. As we later learn, James is harboring a dark secret about his wife's death, and Pyramid Head's relentless pursuit of him can be seen as James's subconscious need to atone for his sins. This dynamic between James and Pyramid Head is key to understanding the creature's true role in the game. He's not just there to scare the player, although he certainly does. He's there to serve as a physical embodiment of James's inner demons, forcing him to confront the truth about himself and his actions. To really understand Pyramid Head, we need to break down his design, because every aspect of his appearance is carefully crafted to reinforce his symbolic meaning. I want to start with his helmet. This massive, angular, triangular structure that covers his head. It's both a source of mystery and a key to his identity. The helmet serves several purposes. First, it obscures Pyramid Head's face, making him an anonymous, almost inhuman figure. Without a face, he becomes more than just a monster. He becomes an idea. Specifically, he becomes the embodiment of guilt, punishment, guilt, and suffering. The helmet itself looks heavy and almost painful, which further drives home the theme of punishment. Pyramid Head isn't just a torturer, he's also a victim, weighed down by the varied concepts that he represents. In fact, that helmet is so iconic that it's often the first thing that people think of when they hear the name Pyramid Head. It's unsettling, alien, and symbolic all at once, turning what could have been a simple villain into a complex figure of psychological horror. And then there's the Great Knife, Pyramid Head's massive weapon. It's not just a tool for violence, it's a metaphor for the weight of James's guilt. The knife is so large and cumbersome that Pyramid Head drags it behind him, almost as if he's carrying the physical burden of guilt and punishment. The sound of the blade scraping against the ground as Pyramid Head approaches is one of the most memorable audio cues in the game, signaling both the imminent danger and the inescapable nature of James's inner torment. Now, let's be honest for a sec, okay? With a helmet that big and a knife that heavy, Pyramid Head's mobility is pretty limited. So let's imagine Pyramid Head trying to do mundane tasks like grocery shopping or using the ATM. Not exactly practical, right? But in the context of the game, these elements work perfectly because they tie into the themes of helplessness and burden. Pyramid Head doesn't need to be fast or agile. He's inevitable, like guilt itself. One of the most disturbing aspects of Pyramid Head's design and of the Silent Hill series as a whole is the use of body horror. Body horror refers to a subgenre of horror that focuses on the grotesque and unnatural transformation or even destruction of the human body. Pyramid Head, with his bizarre proportions, his inhuman strength, and his brutal methods, is a prime example of body horror in action. In Silent Hill 2, there's a particularly memorable scene where Pyramid Head is seen violently assaulting two of the game's other monsters. This scene, though brief, is deeply unsettling, and it underscores the sexual violence and brutality that Pyramid Head represents. His actions are a reflection of James's own repressed feelings of anger, guilt, and self-loathing, really. The horror of the scene comes not from just the violence itself, but from the realization that Pyramid Head is acting out James's darkest impulses. Body horror is used throughout Silent Hill to convey themes of psychological torment. The monsters in the game often have distorted, twisted forms representing the internal struggles of the characters. Pyramid Head, with his exaggerated features and his brutal methods, fits perfectly into this motif. He's not just a threat to James's physical safety, he's a representation of James's inner conflict and the emotional pain that he's trying to avoid. In this way, Pyramid Head is a brilliant example of how Silent Hill uses body horror not just to shock or disturb, but to add depth to its narrative. The horror isn't just about what Pyramid Head does, it's really about what he represents. Pyramid Head's popularity didn't stop with Silent Hill 2. Over the years, he's appeared in multiple Silent Hill games, as well as the 2006 Silent Hill movie. But here's the thing. Pyramid Head's appearance in later games and media has been a subject of debates among fans. In Silent Hill 2, his presence is deeply tied to James's personal story. I mean, he's a manifestation of James's guilt and his desire for punishment, which makes him a perfect fit for that particular narrative. However, in later games like Silent Hill Homecoming, Pyramid Head appears without that personal connection, which has led some fans to argue that the character was overused and lost some of its original impact. The Silent Hill movie, for example, includes Pyramid Head as one of the main antagonists, but his role is more of a generic villain than a psychological manifestation. I mean, he's still terrifying, don't get me wrong, but the depth of his character is somewhat diminished when he's removed from the context of James's story. Despite this, Pyramid Head remains one of the most iconic figures in horror gaming. His distinctive design and his unsettling silence and his symbolic role have cemented him as a lasting figure in pop culture. He's appeared in everything from action figures to comic books to fan art, and his influence can be seen in other horror games that feature similarly relentless, symbolic antagonists. One of the reasons that Pyramid Head is so effective as a horror figure is because he's more than just a monster. He's a symbol. In horror, symbolism can be a powerful tool for creating fear and unease because it taps into deeper psychological and emotional themes. In Silent Hill 2, Pyramid Head's role as a manifestation of guilt is a prime example of how horror can use symbolism to enhance the narrative. He's not just there to scare the player. He's there to force James and us to confront uncomfortable truths about guilt, punishment, and the human psyche. This adds layers to the horror, making it more than just a surface-level experience. This approach to horror is what sets Silent Hill apart from so many other horror games, where the focus is often on physical threats or jump scares. In Silent Hill, the true horror comes from within. The monsters are a manifestation of the characters and their deepest fears, their insecurities, and their desires. And the terror comes from the emotional and psychological impact of those revelations. The next time you're watching or playing a Silent Hill game, pay attention to the symbolism. Ask yourself, what does this monster represent? What is it trying to say about the characters or the story? In many cases, the answer will reveal a deeper layer of horror that goes just beyond the superficial scares. Pyramid Head is one of those rare horror figures that transcends the medium in which he was created. He's more than just a video game villain. He's a symbol of guilt, punishment, suffering. You get it. His terrifying presence in Silent Hill 2 is unforgettable, not just because of his brutal actions, but because of what he represents. He's a manifestation of James Sunderland's darkest emotions, forcing him, and by extension, us, to confront uncomfortable truths about guilt and responsibility and the human condition. The combination of Pyramid Head's haunting design, his silent and unstoppable nature, and his role as a reflection of the protagonist's psyche make him a figure of enduring terror. Even when he's appeared in other games and media detached from James's story, he remains a symbol of what happens when we try to bury our guilt or hide from our past. He's the embodiment of the consequences that arise when we refuse to face our own darkness. For fans of psychological horror, Pyramid Head stands as a testament of symbolism in the genre. His presence elevates Silent Hill 2 beyond just a simple survival horror game and transforms it into a meditation of the nature of guilt and punishment and atonement. And maybe that's why he continues to resonate with fans long after the game's release. In a way, Pyramid Head's enduring appeal is much more like the weight of his great knife. It drags behind us reminding us that the things we fear the most aren't external threats, but the unresolved conflicts that lurk within our own minds. So, the next time you find yourself staring into the fog, remember, sometimes the scariest things aren't the monsters that's chasing us. It's actually the truth that we're running from. Thanks for listening to this episode. I am going to sign off and go play this remake now that I've been waiting literally years for. I hope you click subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or you click follow if you're listening on a podcast platform. I can't wait to see you in the next one.